All right, I'm here with Alex today, and he is a Subaru salesman and has been for 4 years. So, Alex, I really just want to bring you on and ask you, what are you seeing in the car market right now, being from the sales perspective at a new car franchise dealer?
Yeah, so with Subaru specifically, here in the Midwest, here in Louisville, Kentucky, we've still been very busy. We still have the struggle that a lot of dealers have, trying to get inventory and things like that. A lot of our cars sell, a lot of times before they arrive to the lot. A lot of people ask us what kind of, they know what kind of car they're looking for. We kind of advise them on trim levels, things and colors we have coming, and we're able to a lot of times secure deals before those cars hit the ground. So yeah, we've stayed busy, the last few years with the craziness in the market.
That's good. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from a lot of at least the good dealerships is that usually before the tires even hit the ground is that they're selling these cars. So,
Mhm.
with that, do you have consumers that come into your dealership and literally they'll look and they don't see what they want there, and then they'll literally place an order through you? How does that work?
So yeah, that's been a lot of what we've dealt with the last couple of years, just because we went from having literally at some points no new cars on the ground. So what we would do is, you have to get creative. If there's no new cars or used cars to drive, how are you going to sell that product? It's really hard to do that, especially when you're talking about a $30,000-$40,000 vehicle. So what
Right.
I would do is I would kind of team up with our service department. We usually have one of each model in our service fleet. So these are cars that are typically used for not so much for demos, but cars that we would loan out to customers when they're getting their car worked on. So if somebody's looking for a new Subaru Forester or a new Subaru Crosstrek, which are the two hottest Subaru models we have right now, it's likely we don't have a car for them to drive. Actually, right now, as we speak, this is the beginning of October. We have no new Crosstreks or Foresters on the ground for somebody to test drive. So we'll test drive one of those service loaners, which are new cars. We just can't sell them yet. And then yeah, we'll do a build. I know not every auto manufacturer or OEM is that easy, but with Subaru, it's pretty easy. We put in an order with the trim level, the color they want, choose their accessories and options, and usually about 2 months later, we get the car on the ground and finish the deal up.
So, because the consumer can actually order exactly what they want through Subaru, do you find that it's actually better for the customer in that aspect because they're not just getting maybe some of these add-ons that you're seeing sitting on the ground at Toyota, some of these other dealerships that maybe the consumer doesn't want at all, and they're paying more for it because they need to buy that vehicle that's just sitting there?
Yeah, yeah. So you're exactly right. We do find, I think, when we get customer reviews and surveys back, a lot of people, you would think that, well, okay, well, if somebody's got to wait 2 months, that seems like a bad thing. But really, I've seen a lot of people have really enjoyed that experience, and over that 2 month period, you're kind of cultivating that relationship further with your customer, keeping them updated, but they really like that kind of build your own aspect, being able to customize it. And I found that a lot of my customers have fortunately been in a position where they haven't needed a car ASAP. Now, every once in a while, you get somebody who's unfortunately in a car accident, their car's been totaled, the body shop's not going to get it fixed for X amount of months, or they total it out, and so then they're kind of stuck with what's on dealer lots. But yeah, you're exactly right. It does make it, I would say, a better experience. And another aspect to that too is when we have stock units, if we have, say, a Subaru Outback on the ground, it's likely not going to be like a bare bones car. Even if it's a lower trim level, it's likely going to have anywhere from 3 to 5 accessories on there, like all weather floor liners or bumper covers. Different things that maybe somebody, those are actually two very popular items, but maybe somebody doesn't want those and they want to save a
Right.
few $100s. They can opt out of those when they're ordering the vehicle, but when the car hits the ground, however it's optioned, we can't take things off. So it's funny, you can actually, if you're willing to wait, sometimes you can get a car a little bit less expensive or a lower price by doing a custom order.
Yeah, it seems like that's going to be the better of the options, so you can get exactly what you want, and you can pay exactly what it's going to cost for exactly what you want, not get this other stuff. So how
Exactly.
are you seeing inventory roll in now? Is it coming in a little bit more steady now?
Yeah, yeah. So each and every month, I think we've had just a little bit more. It's funny to say right now because I didn't think we would see this anytime soon, but we have I want to say about 10 to 15 new cars on the ground. Some of we just got a new truckload yesterday. And they haven't been through our PDI or our inspection process yet, but those are soon going to be frontline ready on the lot, ready for people to test drive and purchase. Compare that to this time last year when we had a
Right.
lot of times no inventory, maybe one or two new Subarus that somebody could buy. And I think a lot of that, I could kind of go into it a little bit if you'd like, but I think a lot of that's been brought on by a few different things in the market. With interest rates rising, that's an obvious one. And then now you've got student loans repayments being restarted. So that I think we're going to start seeing that soften the new car market.
Right. So have you already started seeing that like over the last 6 months or so? Let's go back 6 months and then right now, what do your sales look like versus what they did then before we got even more bumps on the interest rate side?
Mhm. So surprisingly, so I think I want to think back even like you're right, 6 months, even a year back, when they
Right.
first started increasing interest rates. My initial assumption, like everybody else's, was well, you're going to see a dive in demand, and therefore you're going to see inventory flood lots, and then prices are going to come back down. Well, we have seen that with some of our other OEMs that we sell at our dealership, but not with Subaru quite as much. Really, not even at all. I can't remember the last time that we discounted a vehicle below MSRP. We've never sold above MSRP. That's one thing I talk a lot about on my channel. I'm proud to work for a dealership that has never, even during the really crazy times, we never sold
Which is
above
rare.
MSRP.
That's a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that I mean, that's obviously played into our ability to continue to sell. Us as a dealership, we've continued to sell. Uh, we've actually continued to sell even more volume as we've been getting more inventory trickling in from the plant and things like that. But yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, so I have an opinion on that. I know that I've watched the pricing of the Subarus versus a lot of the other OEMs, and there's two things I've noticed. One is I've been to a few Subaru dealerships myself, and none of them had dealer add-ons, dealer markups, stuff like that. I don't know if there's just a relationship between Subaru the OEM and Subaru the dealerships, if they have a better relationship to be able to manage that a little bit better. Maybe you can speak on that in a second. Another thing too is it seems like Subaru is one of the more reasonably priced vehicles out there, and that's something that me and my wife have looked around a lot because I mean we might be buying a new vehicle here in the future, and Subaru is one that we've looked at. We've looked at Mazda, and it seems like those two brands are some of the more reasonably priced. It might be a big reason why you haven't seen a big drop off in sales. It's just because they're going to these kind of price point cars versus going to the big three, these domestic OEMs that are still charging $50,000 to $70,000 for these SUVs.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. I mean, the price point, it's at a good price point compared to what you can find out there with some of the other OEMs. And then also I think another reason why we see the pricing stay at a good spot is, as you kind of mentioned, Subaru I think does have a really good relationship with their retailers. Subaru is all about building relationships with their customers, local communities, different charities, and kind of selling the car comes second. Now, I almost kind of joke about whenever I'm talking to customers about the Subaru, and we're going over the features, and they're like, you're really good at selling this car. And I'm like, well, it's really, the car really sells itself. It's, if you know the product well, if you're knowledgeable on it, and you share what Subaru does and their involvement, a lot of people kind of sell themselves on it, I think, and they make a really good product. And there's a reason why um, I chose to go work for Subaru specifically. So yeah.
So give us a
And
price point since we're right here talking about it. Maybe give us a price point of some of the more affordable brands. I know not brands, but the trims and stuff.
models.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I know that you did a video on this on your channel, which absolutely go check Alex's channel out. It's great if you want to know anything about Subaru or anything just about the market landscape from a car salesman's perspective in general. Definitely go check his channel out. But yeah, give us a few of the price points of some of the different models in Subaru.
Yeah. So Subaru has a pretty, pretty solid amount of different models. So like starting out, our entry level Subaru is the Subaru Impreza. So that one is going to range anywhere from like right around $24,000 on up, just depending on the trim level you go with. And then just above that is the Crosstrek, which is very similar to the Impreza, but it sits higher off the ground. It actually has the same ground clearance as our more expensive higher trim models like the Outback and the Forester, but it's still at a lower price point. So I mean, you can get a Subaru Crosstrek in the mid 20s as well. It just depends on how you build it out. But if you are somebody who has a growing family, maybe you need a little bit more room, you've got the Foresters and the Outbacks, which the Outback is like that sport utility SUV slash station wagon. It's the car I drive myself, and it's a great all around car. And then if you need third row seating, Subaru introduced the Ascent a few years ago. That is among our higher price. You could see those easily in the 40s and sometimes high 40s, depending on how you build that car out.
Yeah, go back to the Outback again. I don't think you gave a price on the Outback.
So on the Outbacks, you have you could also get some they're going to be kind of the upper 20s to mid 30s on average, just depending on which one you go with. I myself got a built out like a mid trim level one, and it was right at around 35, 36,000.
And I mean that's in this market. I won't say overall for history that's a good price, but for this market right now, that's a great price for a mid
Yeah.
level SUV in my opinion. The stuff that I've seen.
I was going to say, I think I read an article the other day. I think the average new car price now is like somewhere around like the mid 40s, like 45,000. So, I mean, considering the majority of our Subaru line is going to be well below that, I mean, it makes it an easy buy.
So you might be watching this and not even know this, but this is a brand new channel. So if you could do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, it would really, really help me out.
I want to go back and speak to the demand. I know there's a lot of demand for Subarus because they're well priced, and obviously at your dealership because there's no market adjustments or anything like that. It seems like they're treating your customers fairly. Have you seen any decrease in demand at all as far as people coming in, the amount of sales that you're pushing through just because of maybe interest rates? Maybe even talk about how is it more difficult right now to actually get people into loans? Do you feel like the system is tightening up a little bit where you're having more people come in and not get qualified for these loans that maybe would have been qualified a year and a half ago?
Yeah, so with Subaru, I think that the demographic certainly helps with the pressure from interest rates. And what I mean by that is we typically have an older demographic. They're well established, high income, and also people who are maybe retired. So it's not so much they have more disposable income and more flexibility when those interest rates have been increasing. So yes, we've certainly seen. I would say we've seen a slowdown in the maybe the younger age group,
Okay.
but with our typical clientele, the demand has still been there, but the decision on how to purchase has definitely changed. So, when you're talking back 2020, 2021, when rates were still really low, a lot of the people, even if they could purchase in full by writing a check, they were they were financing for the
Right.
60, the 72 months because they can get 0% or close to 0%. Well, now that rates have gone up quite a bit, you're seeing a lot less financing, and you're also seeing a lot more people who do decide maybe they are financing, but they want to kind of have a happy medium. They're putting maybe 50% down and then financing that vehicle. But yeah, I think a lot of it too. You kind of mentioned. Did we have any issues with people getting qualified? A lot of our customer base, they're pretty usually pretty well qualified. So in terms of like whether or not they get approved, is not so much the question. It's just, can we get a rate that is comfortable for them, and things like that. So
What's the typical rate that you're seeing that most consumers are getting right now?
I mean, it's tough to say, and I don't deal directly with, every dealer has their finance department that handles their loans, and at least at our dealership, the salespeople are not really involved on that. I
Gotcha.
do know I can kind of speak to what Subaru advertises as like national rates, and then kind of talk about what I've seen in terms of like averages. But when you look at Subaru's special finance rate, which every auto manufacturer OEM typically does have their special rate that they incentivize customers to continue to buy their new product. It's right around 5%. So 4.9 is what they advertise, but you do have to go a short-term loan to achieve that. So you not only have to have excellent
Right.
credit, but you also have to go typically like a 36-month or a 48-month, 3 or 4 year loan, which is short considering the average is anywhere from 60 to 72 months. So yeah, and then when you jump up to the 60 and 72 months, your rate's going to increase. And you can see anywhere from 6 to 10%, just depends on the situation, not only somebody's credit, but also their equity position. Are they putting cash down? And something that I think also helps with continuing to see these Subarus sell so quickly is that a lot of people, once they buy their first Subaru, they stick with Subaru a very long time. So they're likely repeat customers. They've done business with us before, but they also have equity in their car. It's either paid off or it's held its value really well through the market we've had the last few years. So, I've seen where people have traded in cars and really, and not so much broke even. I mean, definitely back in 2020, people were making money off their car when they traded in, but now
Right.
it's like they're not really out much. They might be out a few $1,000s, but they're getting a new car with no miles. So that's makes it pretty easy when you have maybe a 36,000-mile vehicle. You're trading in for a brand new one. It's maybe the same car you wanted, but maybe has maybe you're customizing your order now and getting exactly what you want for really not a lot out of pocket.
And, I mean, you might be seeing that with Subaru because they are better priced, and you're seeing customers, the repeat customers that aren't paying these market adjustments. But what
Mhm.
I've seen and what I've read across the market right now is that we have a big negative equity issue right now. My question to
Mhm.
you would be maybe people that are trading in vehicles from other OEMs. Are you seeing an increase in the negative equity that they're actually bringing in to your dealership then versus what they have been in the last couple of years?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a good point. Whenever I see somebody come in with another OEM, there's depending on the car. For example, I had somebody with a 2023 Kia recently, and I think a lot of those are getting hit really hard right now. Where
Yeah.
people bought them a year ago, 2 years ago, and maybe they paid full MSRP or they paid above MSRP, and those cars, unfortunately, are not holding their value as well as some of those other vehicles. But typically, the three that I see that have had positive equity or people are in a good financial position on are the Hondas, the Toyotas, the Subarus, given they didn't pay above MSRP for it.
Yeah. So do you ever, it's probably not typical for a big truck buyer to come in and get a Subaru. But are you seeing any like these F-150s or the Sierras that have been bought, these Rams that have been bought in the last 2 to 3 years? Are you seeing any of those customers come in with trading? Because I would imagine that the negative equity in those vehicles is just insane.
Yeah, so we have not so much. I haven't seen it so much recently, but what was it, a year ago when gas prices? I think it was last summer when they it was whenever gas prices first started going up. We started seeing an influx in truck customers coming in to
Okay.
get out of their truck. They wanted something more fuel efficient, and maybe they didn't need that size of a vehicle. They needed a little bit of cargo space, so they're trying to get into maybe like a Subaru Outback that has still a decent amount of cargo space, and but 4-cylinder engine and good fuel economy. So definitely in some of those situations, we had some customers who their vehicle is more sensitive in this market where maybe they were upside down or maybe they didn't have as much equity as they thought, and so they had to bring some cash to the table to kind of balance that out.
So are you seeing that more customers have to bring more cash to the table right now than they have been in the last 12 months or so?
Um, I mean, I wouldn't say have to. Like they could certainly finance 100%. A lot of the customers I work with are, like I said, in well qualified positions. So
Right, right.
they could finance 100%, and some of them have even been in a position to be able to hold some if they had a little bit of negative equity to hold that on the new car. And roll that into their next loan. But the majority of the customers I work with day to day it's more so a decision, a personal decision, and I think they're choosing to put more money down, not because the bank's telling them they have to, but because the rates are higher and they want to offset that increase in interest rate. They don't want to pay that for 60, 72 months. They want to pay maybe half of what that balance would have been by putting a good chunk down.
It sounds like you have like the absolute perfect customer base for this environment right now for a salesperson, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really, and I've seen it from other OEMs because our dealership does sell. For example, we sell Chrysler brands, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, and Hyundai, as well as Chevy and Volkswagen. And some of those brands, you have a different customer base, and so some of those maybe are
Right.
younger demographic, people who are just getting started. Maybe they're just in a position where they're building credit, or maybe they've had one auto loan in the past and they fell on hard times and they couldn't pay it. And so yeah, those some of those brands, those dealers are facing that right now with customers who maybe are not as well qualified, and it's a matter of the bank just telling the customer, hey, if you don't have X amount down, we can't get you approved for this loan that you want.
All right. So let's talk about trade-in values a little bit. So I know on the wholesale market, we've seen a big decline at these prices that dealers are getting at auction. You can see that Black Book data. You can see it Cox Automotive that the pricing on the wholesale side of things is actually coming down. Are you seeing that with trade-in values that are actually coming into your store that you guys are offering substantially less than what you had been in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say substantially less. We still try to be very competitive because we know that customers have. I mean, right down the road from our dealership, we have a CarMax, so we have to be
Okay.
competitive. And we also have a Carvana, down the road too. So you have to be competitive. What I have noticed, and actually, I just encountered this yesterday. I had a gentleman who had ordered a vehicle from me, and his truck. I had given him kind of an estimate before we had initiated that order because I'm all about transparency. I try to lay it all out there and say, here's realistically about 2 months from now what I expect your truck to be, and and sure enough, we were pretty spot on. We were close to that. We gave him a little bit more than what I had estimated because that's better than taking away. But the
Right.
comparing that to say like Carvana, it was a drastic difference. I mean, Carvana, I don't know if they're doing something a little bit different, but they weren't looking at the same data that we were, but they were like $3,000 more than what the book suggested, which was just
Yeah.
that's how it's been the last few years. And whether or not they actually give that amount, I don't know. But yeah, you're seeing some discrepancies there.
So that is interesting. With you having a Carvana and a CarMax near you, they're by far they pay more than anyone. They're going to pay more than a franchise dealer for these trade-ins
Mhm.
because they don't have any extra red tape or anything. They don't go through auctions. They're literally going to do all the work in-house, and then they're going to immediately sell it to the customer. Or it's the fact that they own their own auction, so they're able to just auction them off through their own building. Do you see that since they can offer more than your dealership with them being so close, that you have customers taking their trade in to them, selling, and then coming to you guys to buy a car?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that certainly happens, and kind of our one thing that helps in those situations that not a lot of people think about is if you're, at least this is how it stands in the state of Kentucky, and I think most states are this way, but when you purchase a vehicle, maybe you're purchasing a 30 some odd $1,000 vehicle in the state of Kentucky, you're going to pay 6% sales tax if you live here and you're registering here, because it's all based on where you live and where you register that vehicle. Now, if you have a trade in, maybe your trade-in is valued at, let's say $20,000. Well, 6% of $20,000 is $1,200. So you're actually, in theory, getting, because you get that tax credit at the time of purchase, you're in theory getting $21,200 for that. And so a lot of times we're usually pretty close to CarMax and Carvana is always, they're either really high or really low. I feel
Yeah,
like
it's
there's
all over the
never
place.
yeah, I never understand where their data, their algorithm pulls that. But we most of the time we have people that end up trading with us, and that's because we try to be competitive with most certainly CarMax. I would say they're more in line with what we typically offer. Not always. Sometimes they're also really high. But when you factor in the not only the trade value but also the tax credit, then a lot of times we're in line with them, or sometimes even above. And whenever I share that with somebody, that makes it easy. And if you can do it all in one swoop, if you can trade your car in, drive it to the dealer, trade it in on the car you're buying, and wipe your hands clean, it's so much easier than having to
Right.
sell it, get the check, get it deposited, and wait days before you can go and proceed on your new vehicle purchase.
Have you seen that the UAW strikes have affected you guys in any capacity at all?
So I don't really deal with that on our side at our Subaru store, but from what I hear from some of our guys over at our Chevrolet store, definitely, yeah, their parts department is really,
Yeah.
fortunately, they're in a position where they were able to kind of foresee some of this. Our Chevrolet store has been in business, I think, close to 40 years now, so they've been through some ups and downs, and they keep a close eye on the market, and so they're in a position where fortunately, they're probably in a better position than most dealers, but they certainly are worried about what's ahead with being able to repair cars, and just getting production of new vehicles to the lot.
I know I've talked to a general manager of a GM store, a Chevy store, Buick store, and they loaded up on parts well before all of this hit, and they've been buying like the newer end used vehicles, just
Mhm.
because they think that this strike's going to last a very very long time.
Yeah.
So the salesman role at a franchise dealership is one that has high turnover. I don't
Mhm.
know if you've seen this through your dealership or not, but why would you say that this role has such high turnover?
Well, I mean, I think sales in general is a difficult career, especially if maybe you've never been in sales before. I kind of grew up in a sales environment with multiple different jobs, and then right out of college, just kind of hitting the ground running. And so I've had years of experience prior to even really becoming a full time car salesman. So I think for example, we have some people who um, I know our company really likes to hire, as I think most people are, or most companies are, likes to hire within. And so we have guys that have worked in our detail shop before who are now managers of the company. So, but sometimes it's not always the case. It comes down to personality too. Sometimes you get somebody who maybe has never had sales experience before. They come in, they're not ready to pick up the phone and call, and sometimes that can be an anxiety-inducing environment. You're trying to call people. you've never talked to them before. Sometimes you've never even met them face to face. And as we know with anybody who's calling you on the phone that you don't recognize the number, maybe you don't get the best response. And so it's hard to, I think, deal with the no's, the amount of no's you get sometimes. But from my experience, that the best thing or words of encouragement I can give is you just stick with it. You keep at it. Eventually, you're going to get some people to say yes, and who you're really going to align with and enjoy doing business with.
So I want to thank Alex for coming on the channel today. If you haven't already, go subscribe to his channel. I'll put a link to his channel down in the description. Please, please, please go check him out. He does a lot of videos. You can see the ground level of what it's like to be a new car salesman. He especially gives you a lot of great information on Subaru. So if you're looking for any of that kind of information, if you want to see what it's like for the car market on from the insider's perspective, definitely go check him out. Thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on here.